All right. Hello, Idiots on Parade, the Too Ugly for TV podcast, video podcast. We put it out on audio too, but you should be watching it on video.
Yeah.
Bonus thing. I am comedian Nathan Timmel in Iowa. The guy leaning over is musician Antar Goodwin in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
You having problems?
Oh, yeah. I'm good now.
You just put shadows all over yourself.
Oh, man.
Just lean in. All you have to do is sit up like a normal person, like a big boy.
Getting old.
I know. It's so tough. It's so hard to sit up. So, really quickly before we start chatting, I do want to say this. A couple weeks ago, I can't remember the context. I brought up Malcolm Gladwell. I said that he had talked about, we talked about alcohol on college campuses, and I said Malcolm Gladwell talked about it on a podcast. I was incorrect. That was actually in his book, Talking to Strangers. So if you listened a couple weeks ago, it was his book, Talking to Strangers, where he talks about the problem with rape and alcohol. And he did it in a very interesting, nuanced, thoughtful way where rape is still rape. And there's also a problem with, if a guy takes advantage of a drunk girl, absolutely rape. Two people, both very blackout drunk, two people, there are some people that got angry at him and will get angry at me for even repeating it, that if two people are both drunk and neither one is able to make a decision, well, then it's still rape. Then the guy is still wrong. I'm like, as a guy, I'm not sure how I feel about that. As a dad, I'm like, yeah, fuck anyone that, would do that to my daughter. He handles it much better than I do. But yeah, so it wasn't a podcast, it was a book, Talking to Strangers. Yeah. The next thing, just off the top, is we did something last week. We just talked, and I liked that. So if you are watching this on Instagram right now, if you're listening, great. If you're watching on YouTube, great, no problem. If you are watching on Instagram, they have a 1 hour time limit, so it's just going to end. We're just going to keep talking to a natural conclusion of wherever we are. I'm no longer going to set a timer and cut us off. I'm not saying we're going to put in a 4 hour marathon. I'm just saying I'm no longer going to be beholden to Instagram's time limits. I will create a normal video for YouTube and an audio, and then I'll chop it an hour and put that on Instagram. So if you're just starting now, maybe you want to switch over. If you've had enough after an hour, well, there you go. I think that's about it. How are you doing, my friend? You keep sitting back and you're moving on. Why don't you just pick a spot?
No. I did. I think this is my spot. I think I'm going to sit here. Yeah, I was just the gallery view, just picking my view. So anyway, I'm good. I'm tired just because you see all the work in the back. I'm doing a bunch of construction work, and that's just not my thing. So it's fun and interesting, but it's also exhausting. Like to be. Oh, yeah. Ripping down and building up and kind of doing it under tight time constraints, it's tough. So, but
I'm lucky in that I have a wife that she loves home projects. When we first entered quarantine, actually, this is me being a good husband this week. And I should have been a good husband in the moment. It was only much later that I realized I could be a better husband. I could always be a better husband, but when we went into quarantine and she was bored, she did what almost everybody did. She remodeled our bathroom, and not everybody remodeled bathrooms, and not everybody remodeled our bathroom, although everybody should. Anyway, I don't know if you saw lines at Lowe's and Home Depot and all so that's what people did things. They did home projects like you're doing. And I didn't know why she was doing it. I'm like, our bathroom is fine. It's just a bathroom, but she wanted it to look different. And she did it. And she said, didn't I do a good job? And I went, yeah, looks great. And I meant it, but I also didn't care because I didn't understand why she did it. And sometime during this past week, I was in there pooping, as one does, and it just dawned on me. I looked around and said, this looks really nice. And I said, look, I know I sort of gave you a half compliment, but you really did do a good job on the bathroom. And she said, thank you. And then I said, I still don't know why you did it, but I will acknowledge that you did a great job. Because I don't know, it was a fine bathroom, but so I should compliment easier and more freely, and then don't undercut it with a negative comment, but I still feel the need to. Guess what I did tonight?
What?
I had my first comedy show in goddamn forever, since March
I
14th.
I
March 14th.
I saw that. I got your text when you said you were coming back. You said you had a show, and I was like, right. I saw that yesterday, and then you said you're coming, but you're
Yeah.
leaving this show. I was like, oh, I wonder if it's virtual. There were
Nope.
actually people there,
Yep.
socially distanced.
It was
How was it?
outside. It was like you and Katie the other week at
Yeah,
the farms. What was it called?
Donaldson
Donaldson
Farms.
Farm. Yeah. It was just a charity thing. Someone had seen me do a charity show in the past, a couple of them. So
Mm-hmm.
he said, we're raising funds for our friend who is in need. Would you donate your time? And I said, absolutely. And it was supposed to happen in May, and then COVID, and then it was supposed to happen in June, and COVID, and then they just said, August, we're doing it. And we did it outside, and everybody spaced out, and it was
Yeah,
great. And it was a lot of fun, and all
yeah,
the new jokes hit.
that's awesome.
And it was scary because I pull up, and the first thing I see is a bouncy house and kids running everywhere. I'm like, this was not discussed. Okay. I wasn't, but I told them, I said, I can do a clean show. I'm not worried. And they said, oh no, you can say whatever you want. And I did a mostly clean. I accidentally said fuck once, and not a big
Nathan
deal.
Timmel, then puppet show.
Yeah. They were really happy to have me, though, for two reasons. One, because they were trying to raise money, and two, they
Oh,
said
that's
we're
really
going to have
good.
a musician, a guy with a guitar, and then you right after him. And I show up and I see no one, and he goes, "Yeah, the musician was a no call, no show. He just ditched. So we're
Hmm,
glad you're here." I'm like, "Hey, I said I would be there." So no, they
that's
didn't.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it was
I
really nice to
mean,
be on stage.
I think it's great. There are people there, and you said you tried out new stuff.
Stuff I'd only done is stuff I've written in quarantine. Yeah. So
Okay,
you've
all
heard it.
right,
I bounced it off you because
all
that's what I
right.
do. But
That's
so I
really
was really
cool.
happy. And I
Yeah,
had
it's
some,
fun.
I wasn't going to talk about this. I forgot, it just popped into my head. I meant to text you on the side. I meant to tell you this before we recorded. I got some good news the other day. 5 of the tracks from my last comedy CD, the one you
Hmm.
produced, just got accepted to be put in rotation on Raw Dog on Sirius XM. I just got an email.
Nice. Oh,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, I mean,
That's fantastic.
it's fantastic. Thank you. It's also like an 80-20, where 80% of me goes, "Oh, that's awesome," and then 20% goes, "Why didn't they take the whole album?" You know, I don't know why I have to turn everything negative. Is it me, or is that human to see the
Uh,
dark lining in a very silver cloud? I don't know.
I wonder. I don't know, but it's not uncommon. I'll
No.
say that.
At least it's 80-20. If I was like, upset they didn't take my whole album, I suppose it is a glass
Right.
half full argument, and I choose to look at it as 80% full.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could look at every. I was very happy. I'm still very happy. So it's nice.
That's really cool. That's fantastic, man. I mean, I will honestly say that when I got my newest car, it came with 3 months of Sirius. And when we were out on the road in California, all the cars had Sirius. And it's really great. It's amazing. I don't pay for it. I was like, okay, once the thing laps, I let it go. But in the comedy is what I loved it for. The music stations were cool, but it was really the comedy that I really enjoyed it for. And I definitely found a handful of people through that I went to go find on Spotify, you know?
Nice. My wife
So
did
it's
renew
really
it. She
cool.
got it free for the 3 months, and then she
Hmm.
decided. I mean, she negotiated with them. They wanted her to buy like the big package, and then she called and said, "I'm going to let it lapse." And they said, "Well, what about that?" And she went back and forth, and then she took like their small package for less than they wanted or something. It's funny, they negotiate, but I like it because. And then she went through and added channels. This was just this week. I was flipping through. I said, "Hey, you have new channels on there?" She said, "Yeah, I wanted to add some, and I added a couple for you." And I'm flipping through, I'm like, hair metal. I mean, there's a station called Hair Metal, and they were playing like the crappiest.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, let's talk about this
That's
quick, and then
awesome.
we'll get into serious topics. I posted that clip of me
Yeah,
saying that Motley Crue is the most important hair metal band
yeah,
of the '80s,
yeah.
rock band, and I got some good feedback on Facebook. I got some bad feedback
Hmm.
too. We'll talk about that. People interacted, so I I defended myself on Facebook, but I'll put it out here too for anybody that remembers it or wanted. One person said, "What about Kiss? Beth was a huge hit for them," and I said, "Fair point." The problem is, it didn't, like Home Sweet Home. It didn't create imitators. I don't know why I couldn't
Yeah,
think of that word. It didn't create imitators.
it didn't create a movement. Like I think
No,
that post Motley Crue, everybody had to have a "Smoking in the Boys' Room" type anthemic song. Everybody had to have a "Home Sweet Home" type song. Like there was just a formula. You did this kind, then this kind, then the power ballad. Do
that's
you
what
know
I
what I
was
mean?
just going to say.
And
Is it
I
was
would, you
I'm not
know,
positive, but I'm pretty sure it was usually the first one was catchy, and you had, like you said, the anthem,
yeah,
and then and I pointed out to my friend. I said, Kiss didn't inspire a bunch of people to put on makeup, and Beth just inspired Kiss to make Hard Luck Woman. It didn't create. So that
yeah.
was a good. Someone brought up Van Halen, and I said Eddie inspired guitarists, but the band didn't create a movement.
No, yeah. I
Um,
mean, like nobody, like their use of keyboards, the way they use keyboards in their songs and stuff. Like nobody did that. Like the way that they did. Like nobody wrote tunes. Nobody was not. I'll say nobody, but none of the pop guys were playing double bass like that. The metal. You know what I mean? Like like yeah, like Van Halen influenced a lot of guitar players, and maybe David Lee Roth influenced a lot of singers. Like maybe each one of them influenced a lot of musicians, but I don't know that they influenced a lot of bands that wrote like that.
and like I
Maybe
said,
I don't know.
and Roy, our buddy Roy, brought up Judas Priest and said they had done ballads before too, and I said nobody copied them. And in fact, I didn't mention it last time, but Judas Priest was a band that copied Motley Crue. They rode
Hmm.
Harleys onto stage and wore black leather and spikes, and then for Turbo, they glammed up. KK Downing got a perm. They started wearing yellow leather and blue. I mean, they went glam. It didn't go the other way around,
Yeah.
and
Right.
so it was a neat discussion. And then I had two bad ones. I had one guy said, my friend Nick went, "You are wrong on so many levels, but at least you tried." I'm like, "And you offered nothing. You offered nothing. You didn't challenge back. You just said you're wrong. So that's just like a So you lose by not offering anything of
You're
substance."
wrong on so many levels. Makes it sound so serious.
Yeah. And
All
then
right.
I like this one. My friend Brad went completely off base and went, "What about the Talking Heads?" Or something like, "No, you're wrong, Talking Heads." I'm like, okay, that's not metal, but two, Talking Heads didn't suddenly have a wave of bands where the singer put on a big oversized suit or did quirky, offbeat, weird, like they
Yeah,
were
I
original.
mean,
I'm not arguing that Motley Crue was the most original, but I'm arguing that everybody copied them in the metal world. Nobody really copied the Talking Heads. They couldn't. They were too unique.
yeah, I mean that would be a ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's absurd.
that was fun.
Ah,
All right, so let's
yes.
break down something. I don't want to say serious, but we had a couple subjects. You had sent me a couple. Why don't you go first? You had sent me an article on.
Oh,
I'm already forgetting, so that's why you need to talk about it.
I think I forgot too.
Ellen and who else? Ellen and someone else.
Oh, J.K. Rowling.
Yes, there you go. The substance of the article, just breeze it over. Give me your thoughts. Ask me questions. Do what you want to do. And let's see where the conversation
Well,
takes
I
us.
mean, it was an interesting thing because they both, everybody's arguing that they're like bad people. Didn't we talk about this?
Not on. We talked about it in private for a second. I said let's save it for the show.
Okay. Yeah, everybody talks about how they're bad people. Now they're being canceled, even though while they were pretending to be good, they did a lot of quote unquote good. But now somehow, because Ellen, everybody says, oh, Ellen's like this wicked bitch. Now she's horrible because everything was really fake. And it's all coming out now. And she's getting canceled left and right. And J.K. Rowling said what she said about trans people. And and then she got canceled, even though. So I guess the question is, I remember at the time I had a question. Now I'm trying to remember what it was, and I don't remember
I think you
specifically.
said, "Is it
But
sexism?" Because you
oh, is it
tried.
sexism? Right, because right, I mean, if I mean, I guess it's partially like when like everybody knew Sean Penn was a dick, like he was punching photographers in the face, right? So nobody cared, right? But like if you all of a sudden found out that Will Smith was really an asshole, would you not go to his movies? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, like I wonder that, like, I wonder if we hold women to a different standard of niceness. Do you know what I mean? Like Trump is calling Kamala Harris like nasty and stuff, and the words that people use to describe women who are assertive or go for things, and maybe have, like, Ellen's gig is an acting gig. It's legitimately an acting gig. I get that people are upset because she sold niceness and kindness and do nice things for everybody and do this and do that, and secretly she's a horrible person. And so I get it. On a certain level, people feel like they've been lied to, right? I heard this say, I it's like it's like you say the names. I heard that, and you're like, oh god, that person's really powerful. Like, right, like, you know, on this, like, there are people who you just can't talk about. Like, it's funny, you know, not that they're ever gonna hear it, but it's just funny, like, people who I would hesitate to mention who are really
Oh,
assholes. You know what I mean? In real
yeah.
life. Versus, like, I was like, oh, maybe people don't know that, and I should not say that. You know, interesting.
Yeah. I wondered
Anyway,
why you started laughing because you caught yourself. I'm like, did I miss
yeah,
something? But you were, yeah, you
no.
were.
I was like, woo.
Um, well, I think
Anyway,
okay, two thoughts.
yeah,
I have two thoughts.
yeah,
One, two men talking to one another. Obviously, we don't have any place to say what's sexist and what's not because we're not experiencing it. So I'll admit that up front. And, taking a step back and just trying to observe it the best I can, just on Ellen alone, I do believe that I don't think she has an acting gig. I think when she was an actress, that's one thing. I think that the talk show was meant to be genuine. And I think that's why people feel betrayed. I am not sure that is sexism. Now, holding a woman to a different standard of niceness, that I'm not ready to get into yet. I'm just saying on that level, I would say people don't like being lied to. You asked the Will Smith question, and I think, and I have no dog in this fight, but I do think it would bother me, like not ruin my day. But if I found out that Will Smith was actually a dick, I'd be like, huh, I always liked him. What the fuck? You know, it would upset me a little bit.
mm-hmm,
It would at least give me pause. And I'm not
mm-hmm,
saying I would be sitting in a theater and if a cool trailer came on, I'd go, well, I'm not going to see it because it's Will Smith. But it might be in the back of my head, like, wow, I want to see that. Yeah, I am going to see that. It's too bad he's a dick, if that makes sense. Um, and I think it was, as far as I know, a poorly kept secret that she is actually, you know, mean, that she's a rude person, that
yeah.
she's very,
She's like, from my understanding, she's horrible.
yeah. And
She's
so the
horrible.
fact that she used the talk show to say, I'm a nice person and everybody dance and get along and be nice to everyone, except not my staffers. I'm going to treat them like shit. There was
Right.
one lady that now came out and said the producer, it was a lady from the audience. I guess she did some audience participation thing. And a producer pulled her inside and said, hey, before we start, don't make eye contact with her and don't be funnier than her. As like, all right, you know, like very protective of her. And I've heard these stories before. So that's just an Ellen thing. But if you want to talk about are women held to a higher standard, I think they are. I think that as far as just being objective in a male, I do believe that there is sexism in the fact that um, a guy wants something and he's assertive, and a woman wants something and she's a bitch. It's
Right.
not fair. I don't agree with it. I do say I observe it, and so
Yeah.
I don't think it's applicable in this case. But I would agree that it is a societal problem.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue, not argue, but I would posit that it's learned behavior, right? Like, I think we just, like, I think there's people will argue biology all the time, like men are like this and women are like this, and there are obviously biological differences, right? But I don't know that they account for the behavior as much as some of the socialization does, right? I don't know one way or the other, but I think that socialization plays a heavy part in our behavioral routines, you know. But I notice in myself, there are times when I noticed that my reaction to women mentally, my immediate reaction is more hostile than it would be towards a man sometimes. You know? Like, and then I always catch myself and I go, why would I think that? Like, I literally would go, like, if I think some ridiculous thing in my head or something, like, what a bitch or something, I don't know, whatever. I would think, why am I thinking that? Like, what is that? Like, I catch myself and I call it out pretty quickly. But I also have been around people who say that shit out loud and they think there's nothing wrong with it. And they also don't think that they're sexist. Do you know what I mean?
I
And
do.
it's like it's an interesting thing, because I try to catch myself, but it's tough, you know.
I think I'm lucky in that I don't do that. However, if we're confessing to things, I do know I am a horrible person in aesthetics, like just
Hmm.
judging quickly of, oh wow, she's beautiful. She's probably dumb. Like she probably just had
Right,
everything handed to her because she was beautiful and she skates by on that. Like uh,
right.
I'm guilty of that. When it comes to having hostile thoughts towards women, you made me think of a comic. Well, I won't name. He's not famous. He can't hurt me, but I have no reason to call him out. There's no reason for me to name him. But I've worked with him a bunch of times, and we're friendly. And I, 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 I noticed it the first time we worked together, and and it bothered me. And to the point where every time I worked with him, I'm like, how do I approach this with him? And finally, I just asked him. I said, hey, every time you mention a woman in your act, every single time, you call her a bitch. He's like, oh, I don't do it that much. I'm like, well, I counted. You did it 8 times within 20 minutes. And it was just little things, and it would always get a laugh. He'd say, I don't want to do any of the jokes because it could get traced back to him, but even innocuously, it was never like in anger, like, oh, that bitch. It was like, oh, so I did this and the bitch did that. But she was not a
Right,
woman. She was not, and then Sarah or Lucy
right,
or, she was not given, it was always a bitch. And
right.
I pointed out to him and said, I don't do it that often. He said, huh? I said, you did it 8 times. Anytime you mentioned a woman. And I said, why is that? And he goes, hmm. And then I don't know if actually haven't worked with him since I did that.
Hmm.
um, and it was just interesting to me and it got a laugh from the audience. And I always found that disturbing. And I would like to hope that he's changed it or
Hmm.
because I tried to approach it as delicately as possible, but it bothered me that audiences laughed and it seemed to me that it was something that he may have stumbled across. Like I have a buddy that
Hmm.
I remember this clearly. In Los Angeles, you would do 5-minute sets. And one day he did a set where Bacon got a big laugh. And I saw him a month later and Bacon was in his 5-minute set 4 times. And I wondered if that's what my buddy did with bitch. He said bitch at one point and the audience laughed and he went, ooh, that's a good one. And then he kept so I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe I'm going nowhere other than we are a sexist society, but it disturbed me that audiences just laughed so easily at that, especially in unnecessary places. Like if you're doing joke where this woman made me very angry, fuck her, she's a bitch, I can see that. But just the casual, and then the bitch, it never sat right with me. So there is a problem. There is a
I
big
mean,
problem.
I will say two things. I'm just trying to figure out the order. I mean, one is a question, and then one is a statement. So I'll say them both, and then you can put them together. Do you think that all is fair in love, war, and comedy? Like, do you think that in the pursuit of funny, you should be allowed to say whatever you want to say? Right? That's the first question, and you can answer that really now, and then we'll talk about the
Sure.
second thing
The
later.
answer is yes.
Hmm.
I the way I always answered it is I don't have a rape joke. I've never written a joke about rape because I'm not sure I could ever find it funny or make it funny. But Nick DiPaolo used to have a rape joke that I thought was hilarious. He said, "I saw a 300-pound woman with a rape whistle." I'm like, "Wow, you have positive thinking. Good for you. Maybe you should carry 2 rape whistles, one for you and your rapist." I can't believe I'm doing this. Somebody stop me! And I thought it was funny. I would never write it because I just don't think about rape that way.
Right,
But if you're going to write about something, you better make sure it's goddamn funny if it's something as
right,
horrible as rape. So I think everything is
absolutely.
fair. That's my first answer.
I mean, that was the thing. Like when Don Imus, I think it was Imus or one of the guys said
Nappy-headed
something,
hose.
right?
Imus
And
was
it was like,
nappy-headed hose.
right, and it was like, well, and Patrice O'Neill defended him, and he said, well, he's allowed to go for you know, for he's allowed to try it. You know what
But
I
was
mean?
he being a comedian or was he being a radio commenter? You know,
I don't
was
know.
he?
I think he's supposed to be a comedian. I
I
think
don't
that
think
it's
so. He
what
was
I
just a
think that
radio
what
personality.
I think it's what Chappelle said. You get paid for the attempt. He said you get paid for the attempt. You know what I mean? It doesn't always work. Sometimes you say something, and he wasn't trying to be a comedian, but he was trying to be funny, right? Like he was trying to be. He wasn't seriously calling them. He wasn't like, listen, those Russians, those bitches are just a bunch of nappy-headed hoes, and like he was trying to be funny. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
But it
it
wasn't in
wasn't.
context. He's not on stage here,
No,
and he's not a
and right,
comedian. He's a
and he's
radio
not,
personality.
and he's
So,
not funny,
yeah.
right? But I guess the question is he allowed to try it in the attempt to be funny? Like, are you allowed to do that, or do you have to actually be a comic to get away with that, or do regular people get to say because this is you know in the so we always end up at this place. Um,
Race. Are we going to
like
race?
it's hilarious, it's fucking comical, but like I try to avoid it. People are like, what do you guys talk about? I'm like race, and I'm like, well, we both try to avoid it all the time, and we end up back there. But like, I hear people saying a lot.
To be fair, it's probably better for a black guy and a white guy to talk about race than two guys to be talking about sexism.
Well, no, because I think yes and no. I think I would disagree with you because I think that as men we have a unique insight into sexism because I can look at myself and
And we have to change
understand
our behaviors. Fair point.
the
Yeah.
exact
We
ways
have
in
to
which
raise good
I
sons.
can't.
All right.
Right, like we talked, you know, like we talked about this about the woman in California when I watched her perform. Didn't we talk about this?
Yeah. You saw
Right,
her and I don't like her. And then you
right.
wonder, yeah.
And then I remember looking at the guy who went on before, and he had the same qualities, and I admired them in him and didn't like them in her. And once
Right.
I looked at her with new eyes, I actually really enjoyed her show and found her to be really amazing, and have kind of struck up like a working friendship with her. Like you know, like I really like her, and I
I
had
guess
to really catch myself. You know what I
my
mean?
comment would be like two guys dismissing sexism. That would be the
Oh
interview.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that's
So two
ridiculous.
guys
But,
trying to
yeah,
wrap their hands
like
around their own sexist behaviors. All
well,
right.
I
Fair
mean,
enough. Because I
listen,
think that's what
because here's the thing. At the end of the day, this is again the Beverly wasn't it D'Angelo,
I was going to
white
say
fragility,
hillbillies.
right? Ha, is that her name? Beverly? Is it Beverly D'Angelo or
Beverly
Robin?
D'Angelo, the
No,
actress.
no, Robin. No, Robin D'Angelo.
Oh, okay.
White
Oh,
fragility.
white fragility.
Right. How she says that, like, but like, here's the thing: that to a degree, one of the points she raises is valid, and I will apply it to sexism. Right. I believe that I was trained to be this way. I don't think that men are naturally sexist. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't think that, but I do think that I grew up in a world watching powerful white men do kind of whatever they wanted to women. You know what I mean? James Bond would smack him around like it was nothing and then grab him and kiss him and they would go, "Oh, James!" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, you know, and then it wouldn't, the Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider,
Well,
fucking, you
stick
know,
to
all the
James
way
Bond for
up,
a
you
second.
know? I mean, Jesus, go
Family
ahead.
Guy did a great one of their cutaways on James Bond where it was have sex with me. No, have sex with me. No, have sex with me. Okay. He's like, remember, guys, 10 no's and a yes is still a yes. Or so, I might not be getting it right,
Right.
but it was, like it was legit sexual
Right,
harassment, and it was
exactly.
like mainstream
Exactly.
entertainment.
Right, and we all watched it, and girls bent over, and guys went ooh, or guys went ooh, look at her, and the girl went hee, and
Yeah.
everybody that we watched it, we all saw the movies, and everybody was having sex and grabbing up people, and it was perfect. It was considered perfectly normal. That doesn't make it right, but and I can be aware of the fact that it's not right, but it doesn't change the fact that it largely influences the way I interpret you know what I mean? Like I have to stop myself and untrain myself. Like
Yeah.
this is the argument people make about racism when people go, well, it's going away, and if we just don't talk about it, it's like bullshit. because to become a not sexist man who doesn't just like inherently just have these feelings, right? Like I'm allowed to dislike a woman if I don't like her, right? But the idea of disliking people specifically because of this thing, or begrudging them, like when you said, "Oh, she's pretty. She probably had everything handed to her whole life," and blah
Yeah,
blah blah. Right now, you might say that if you see a really good-looking guy too, right? You might have
true.
the same exact response with both of them, right? But with her, there'll probably be a bit more venom, but maybe not. Who knows, right? But like undoing that kind of thinking, right? Like undoing that takes work.
Yeah.
The awareness of the fact that you have the deficiency doesn't magically make it go away. And I think there's something how like in this country we have this belief that if we're aware of a problem, it will magically go away because we're aware of it. Like, so just if we expose it and go, oh shit, slavery was wrong. Oh, okay, cool. Let's outlaw it. Cool, great, good. All done now. But there was no work done, right? Like, and I say that only as a man who is consciously undoing my sexist training, right? Like that
Yeah.
I would imagine that it does take work. It takes real work and effort. You know what I mean? It's not just a thing. If that makes sense. I don't
It does. And you made something pop into my head that bothers me more than ever now. No, it's because it, I remember I've heard this my whole life. And in the past, maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe since Me Too, it's become a verboten statement. It's become it's when someone says, "Hey, I have daughters. Don't think that I act that way." Like, "Oh, you shouldn't act that way because," like it's an out. And I get that some people might use it as an out, but as someone with a daughter, it does change you. And I think it can be a legitimate say, maybe I used to talk like this, or I was younger and I used to think or act this way. And now I have a daughter and I look back and go, holy shit, I don't want people to act that way toward my daughter. I need to be a better person. I'm sure some people just say I have a daughter as a way of trying to explain or empathize, but I think it can be a genuine empathy in saying, no, look, I have a mother. There are women in my life. I'm trying to do better as a man. And so I know I don't like it when people automatically discount that saying. Does that make sense? Or
Yes. Here's the. mm, but it's kind of like it rings of. But I have a
I have
black
a black
friend.
friend. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
hear
And
you.
the thing is that like in your case it makes a difference, right? In my case, having a sister didn't make me always do right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't say I always did right, but I can say that I kind of grew up out of shitty behavior faster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all the kind of shitty behavior when we were like my friends and I were young teenagers, like doing dumb shit, like stuff that's the thing, like stuff that would never fly nowadays. Would never fly. Like in the Catholic school, guys pulling up girl skirts and running away, or
Yeah. Yeah.
standing under the stairwell, going like this and looking up. It's like it's not even that you even saw anything, right? But it's like that kind of dumb, kind of juvenile behavior. Like that shit is really fucking bad, right? Like I know it's childish, I know it's immature, and as a guy who has stood under a stairwell at 13 or 14 and looked up, you can't really see anything anyway. But it's really like the idea of that being an acceptable form of behavior that the teachers just kind of like shook their finger at. And you know what I mean? And didn't
Yeah.
say, listen, guys, this makes the girls really uncomfortable and it's really not okay to do this. Like, they don't have to like beat you over the head with it, but maybe they do. Like, I don't know, like maybe that's the kind of thing that like it's a teachable moment. There's a lot of stuff that we just call boys being boys that were really teaching moments where people could have pulled us aside and really taught us something that would have affected us. And instead, they left it up to a bunch of of pubescent hormonal teenagers to figure out the birds and the bees. You know what I mean? Like they left it to us to figure out, and we surely made a fucking mess of it. You know
I,
what I
I need
mean?
to interrupt you
Like it's
because
crazy. Yes.
I don't want to lose this thread because you just made me think that the idea that I have a daughter is I have a black friend. I hear you. And maybe that's what it becomes, what you just said. Having a daughter became a teachable moment.
Yeah. Right.
Because,
If you right, absolutely.
right. So,
Right.
because I hear, like, I get how it sounds discountable, but it's in the phrasing. It's in the phrasing. Like, my
Yeah.
daughter changed me. I was never, a Harvey Weinstein, but I was a young, dumb guy. And,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And
I
and
like
and
teachable moments. So it's not
yeah.
a blanket statement. I would never do that. I've got daughters. It's like having a daughter made me a better man.
Right. Absolutely. But
That would be a
here
better phrase.
and here's the ultimate problem, because I think you're right. I think that if you phrase it in a way that explains how your daughter has changed you, I think people will allow for that to be a solid reason. But
Right.
you'll have to back it up,
Or
right? The
wife
simple
as
fact
well,
that
because you have these
right,
relationships, and until you
yeah,
are
I
living with
mean,
someone and bonded to them in marriage, I don't want to say relationships are disposable, but your marriage changes you, and it can, like, oh,
yeah,
so I get how saying, well, I have a
yeah,
wife is a disposable statement,
yeah,
but
because
my
plenty of
marriage
people,
changed me.
right,
It's
is a
better
much more
phrasing.
reasonable, right? Because plenty of people yell and scream and have violent marriages and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so right, but saying it, like phrasing it in a way of showing how it's enabled you to grow. You know what I mean? I think that's fair. I think that's a reasonable one.
I thought of this while you were, Jake and I talked about this on the
Hmm.
audio part of the podcast. This actually hit the news. We were making fun of it, and I will still make fun of it. But you and I tend to talk more uh, down to earth, less. We carry a different tone when we speak. This hit the news today. An NHL announcer talked about the bubble the NHL is in. I know you don't follow sports, but the NBA is in a bubble so that the players can't leave the hotel so no one gets COVID. And the NHL is doing that as well. And this commentator said, well, this is good for them. These guys can just focus on playing hockey, and there are no women as a distraction. And it's not that Twitter blew up, but a lot of people are like, oh, he needs to be fired. Women are not a distraction. Women are empowered. Women are great. And I'm like, you are fucking idiots. What he is saying is that young men are morons. They think with their dick, and that's all they do. And if there aren't women around, yeah, they're just going to have to focus on hockey. It was not an anti-woman statement. And I thought it was really interesting that people tried to really blow it out of proportion.
I
I thought it
think
was
that
sad
this
people tried
is
to blow it out of, or did not try. They did blow it out of proportion. What do you think upon hearing that? Am I insane? I thought it was an anti-man statement,
this
and rightfully
well,
so.
it's interesting because I think that this will tie into something that was sent about the black vegans, right? The if food is now woke or something
Oh, I
about
did see that.
right, right.
White,
So
yes, yes,
right,
yeah.
so
White
these
women
two
are
things are
taking
gonna
veganism from black. I don't remember. It was just this
now,
absurd.
but here's an interesting thing, right? Because these two things are gonna relate to each other in a second. Why? Watch this. It's gonna be like it's like this. Ready? Like that.
You show that to Truman. Truman, I've got a magic trick. Except
You
I'll screw
should,
it up. I'll probably go like this. Oh,
right? But I have to say that I was listening to a woman the other day. This woman, Gia Tolentino. I guess she's a writer for New Yorker, but she used to write for Jezebel, and she's a big feminist writer. And she said something interesting about the. She's getting a lot of blowback from the feminist community because what she's arguing, she's saying to a degree that, like, yes, sexism may be a part of what's going on, but it may not be the most important thing in the room that's going on, right? And I was like, oh, that's interesting,
Yeah.
because I had a similar kind of theory, because I'm smart like her, you know. Uh, but like, you know, I had a similar theory about the degrees, right? Like it's a percentage game, right? Like if I don't get the job, maybe part of it is because I'm black, but maybe that's not all of it. And if that's 10% of it and 90% of it is something else, like, not like, is that okay, but is this maybe just a game of percentages and ratios, right? Like sexism and racism and these things are going to be kind of like, we're trying to dial them back, but I don't know that they'll ever get dialed back 100%.
I'm
You know what I
laughing
mean?
because you made me think like if you didn't get the job, yeah, your being black was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like
Right,
you were on the fence, but you were black, so it just didn't cut
right, 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 right. But like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, like,
Don't
I'm
forget, you're
trying to
trying to
think.
tie this to black veganism. I'm
I am in a second. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to say something without like offending every single fucking group. Like this fucking time period we live in, it's fucking absurd, right? Like,
but if you do say
I,
it, maybe someone will hear it, it'll go viral, and then we'll have attention like we need.
well, like, all right, like let's say you go to see a band, right? And they are a group of, fill in the blank, whatever minority oppressed group we're talking about is up there on
Left-handed
stage.
lesbian Eskimos.
There you go. And let's say that they suck, right? Can I say that? Right? And 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 if my thought process is like like if I say something derogatory about whatever the group they are, it's like when you're in your car and you go, you know, like somebody cuts you off and you go, fucking whatever they happen to be is what you say, right? It's like it's like I don't want to say it's like acceptable racism, because it's not, but
Well,
like there is a degree to which like sometimes you take your thought that, well, these people suck and this shit sucks, and you just wrap it in with some other stupid bullshit that makes you smile or laugh. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like,
'Cause I was going to go somewhere different with it. I was going to try and give you a real example. Can I give you two real examples really quick? But
yeah,
I don't think they fit now. The
sure,
because you said you wrapped it in with the other part to be funny, because
right,
I thought you were saying you're not allowed to criticize anything that you're not a part of. I thought that because the all female Ghostbusters reboot, I haven't seen it. I have no interest in it. And when it came out, I wasn't allowed to say I have no interest in it because then I'm immediately sexist. I had no interest in it because it was a reboot of a favorite movie of mine. If it had been just a reboot with four men, I still would not have seen it. I had zero interest in it. The fact so that if you said anything against that movie, you were immediately labeled sexist. Same thing with
yeah,
Wonder Woman. I saw Wonder Woman. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not a good movie. It's very bad. It's a very bad movie. I'll probably get in trouble for saying that right now. But if you said it when it was coming out, everything was about female empowerment. This is the greatest movie
well,
ever because it's a female superhero. It's this, it's that, and I'm just like, I I I don't care,
yeah.
man. It's just a bad
I
movie.
mean,
You couldn't say that because you were sexist.
I'll add on to that. As a black person, right?
Wait,
This
you're
is a
black?
big Haha.
I
This is
don't see
a
black. I see. We're not going to go down the same path tonight. I'm
a
not going to go
shade
down
of
it.
gray. Um, it's a Hollywood thing you hear a lot, right? But just in general, right? Like black people, we can't criticize black art because there's so little of it. Like if you're like paintings, right? Black painters, we can't criticize them even if you think the shit sucks, right?
You
Because
guys
they're
won't even
so
criticize DJ Khaled, and he sucks. Khaled. I
right,
mean, he
right.
sucks. And
I
you,
mean, but that's the thing. And but white people aren't allowed to criticize it either. Right, like if like what you're saying about Wonder Woman, like nobody can say anything about it, right? Like if women say Wonder Woman, well, if they go, well, it sucked, right? But it was fun to see, but it was kind of dumb, like, you know, whatever. It was action packed and lots of this and lots of that, but all in all, it was a shitty movie, right? If they say that, not that that's what I think, but let's say they say that, right? women would jump on them for saying that. And if men don't say anything, but then how do you create a system in which we don't allow bullshit to slide through in the guise of multiculturalism, right? Like how do like right? How do you keep the standard high in a place where actually where the free market economy does what it's supposed to, right? In a jazz musician world, in a comedian world, right? You talk about all the guys hanging at the Comedy Store and how they all would fucking beat on each other on a regular basis, and that's what made them better. Is the stiff competition is what actually made them better. In the jazz world, it's real competition, friendly competition, mind you, but competition nonetheless. You're people pushing it and a high standard of excellence. They made the things be what they are. And if black people can't criticize black art even when it's shit, then how does that make the art better? Does you know what I mean? Like it's a catch-22, right? Because you can't criticize them, right? Like if there's a black bass player who's putting out solo albums and I go his shit sucks, when there's like so few of them that I should be the first guy out to buy them just to support my brother bass player making an album, right? Then with that mindset, how do we ever get the stuff to be great? Do you know what I mean? Am I making sense?
You are, and
Like it's
it's
like a weird catch-22. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And what and you and white people like white people can't criticize black art either, right? Because you're racist. If you criticize it legitimately, like let's say that what was the second Jordan movie, Us, right?
Oh,
Get Out. He made
I
Get
didn't
Out,
see it.
right? But you saw Get Out, right?
I saw the reason I didn't see Us is because I saw Get Out, and I didn't. I saw Get Out after it was so hyped that it had to be the best movie in the world, and when it was just good, it did. Here, the main reason I did not see Us is because Get Out pissed me off so much for one reason. One little thing, when he was in the chair in front of the TV and he's strapped in, and then I have seen, but a couple scenes later he pulls the whatever out of it. It's like, no, your arms are strapped in the chair. There's no way he could have torn out filling from
Right,
the
he
chair
got
to
his
shove in
head
his ears.
down there.
It just bothered
Right,
me so much, that little inconsistency. I'm like,
right,
there's no way he could have done it. I all the racial, themes and everything was very good, but I was just too bothered by that.
right. That kind of
Dude,
lack of continuity.
yes,
Right.
the fact that he was strapped
But,
in the chair.
but now you can't. Now we can talk about it now. But if you,
Yeah,
but if when
but
us,
in the moment, you can't
right,
say I didn't enjoy Wonder Woman because you're a bad person. You
right,
can't say
exactly, right. You can't say it. I
I
mean,
already forgot
I
what it's.
saw
Oh,
it.
I was just
I
gonna
saw
say,
Wonder
in the
Woman. I thought
moment,
it
you
was
can't say Get Out is not the best picture I've ever seen
right.
because I thought it was just fine. Like
No, but here's what I will say, right? As a again, I don't speak for all black people, but as me, as a
but you
black dude,
should.
right? Seeing people who look like me in situations behaving in ways that make sense to me, right? Like it was refreshing to not look and watch somebody run and fall down and then go into the room that you would never go into in real life if the scary
Right.
person was there and watch the person but like the fake fight scenes and stuff. I was like, ugh, like I'm just so tired of seeing stuff that I know wouldn't happen. And when you watch a black dude do some shit, he's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. He was like, you're like, yes, that's exactly what you do. And everything he did is something that made sense to me. It wasn't fucking nonsense. It actually made a little bit of sense. So to
Yeah.
me,
And I
right,
liked
like,
all that about the film.
right,
I had that
I
one,
will,
two
right,
problems. One, I saw it after it was too hyped, and that was on me. So it
right,
had to be the
absolutely,
best film ever.
absolutely,
And two, the shit in his ears. That's it. Otherwise, I thought
right,
I really enjoyed it.
absolutely. But here's the question, right? Was it a great movie? I really liked it, right?
I enjoyed it too. Yeah.
Was it the most original movie?
No,
Well,
they said it was
it's
the
a
Skeleton Key.
combination.
All he did was watch the Skeleton Key and remake it.
I mean, right. It's kind of like Skeleton Key. Somebody else said Stepford Wives. Somebody else said, like, there's a handful of movies where the idea, and there's a handful of sci-fi stories and things that we would have grown up on that are similar plot lines, right? Where
Right.
somebody like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or any of this stuff. Like it's not. I don't. It's not that it's not, but it is. I thought his take on it was a unique take,
I would agree
right?
with that.
But it is a. But it's like the hero's journey. There's like 5 stories. We just all try to tell them in a way that makes them appear newish, but there's really only a handful of stories, right?
I actually sort of
This is
lied to
one of
you
them.
too. The other reason I didn't
Hmm.
see Us is I was on the fence. I thought it looked like a great premise. I'm like, oh, this is fucking freaky. And I actually read a spoiler review of it that said, spoiler to anybody watching that hasn't seen Us, that doesn't want to ruin for them. It said that the ending was like secret government program of doppelgangers. I'm like, it seemed like it was a big buildup of something neat that turned into something tinfoil hat. Like it didn't seem like a great payoff. Like, wait, so the government's
I
making
mean,
it doesn't seem like I want to see that. So that's the other reason I didn't see it. You had asked,
that's
so
actually,
we've gone
but
way down a
that's
tangent. You were bringing up
no,
Us
but
for some reason.
that's actually why, because like I saw it and I was like, yeah, it's interesting. I was like, it's interesting.
Yeah.
That's what it was interesting. But did I think it was an amazing piece of cinematic genius?
Oh,
I don't
right. That's
know.
where we started, is
Like,
you're not allowed to
like,
criticize it.
right?
Right.
Like, I mean, and in all honesty, maybe it's just over my head. Really, literally, maybe I just don't get it. Like, and that's totally possible. It also just could just not be great. Who knows? I don't know. And it's all opinion, right? And not everything you write is going to be a home run, right? So who am I to criticize his work, right? But at the same time, it's really interesting to not be able to criticize it, to not be able to give a negative opinion, right? Because there's so few black writers in that genre that anytime anybody's in it, we kind of just have to go, yes, brother, you go for it, because there's so many black people who are into that kind of stuff that don't have a voice, because most of when people think of black people, they think sports and music and the obvious things. But there's plenty of
Yeah.
black people who like sci-fi and like horror and write horror and draw things that would be graphic novels, and they're just regular people who like that thing, and they don't have a voice in this. And when they go get a job, the first thing people say is, black people aren't interested in this. Black people don't like this. So we're not going to hire you or give you the thing. At least that's what it appears to be, right? I don't know people in that world. So this is, what are we looking at?
You catch the fire alarm just went off. It did a chirp. So
Ah,
I don't know how often it's going to do that, but of
all right.
course it happens as it gets close to bedtime. Well, at least it didn't happen at 2
Well,
a.m. So if it
I
gets
mean,
annoying, I can pause this and edit it out, or not. But
make sure it's is that a carbon monoxide tester? Like if you pass out, that could be a thing.
well,
You
if
know,
if
I
uh,
mean,
if
it'll
I
be on
pass out,
film.
call 911.
Yes, that's nice.
Anyway,
But
you know what you made me think of
but
just now
mm-hmm.
is, and I'll open with a genuine, not compliment, but genuine. I love the movie Black Panther. I think it is fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's not the best Marvel movie, yet it got nominated for an Oscar, and I think it rode a wave of pushing an agenda. And someone pointed that out and got
Yeah.
blasted. I mean, it's a
Well,
great
what do
movie.
you think is the best? Just out of curiosity.
Mm, Maybe The Winter Soldier or Civil War. I think
Mm-hmm.
those two Captain Americas are just fantastic. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they are really well put together.
Sure. Blonde hair, blue eyed white guy.
The thing, the thing I didn't like about Black Panther, and I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. The thing I did not like is you. First of all, you knew how it was going to end, and you know that with any movie that the hero is going to win. But I didn't get a sense of danger, even when he lost. I'm like, okay, so I already knew the ending. Like, and the ending he's got to overcome. But he was too invincible to me. Like, it was just a little too much. It was put the suit on, nobody can beat me up. Like, oh, I absorb energy, you can shoot me, I can release the energy. I mean, it was just a little too powerful. The only time he was vulnerable is when he had the power stripped from him, and then he lost. I'm like, okay, so that was my one thing, is like just too much
Mm-hmm.
easy ass kicking without any sense of danger. That was it. But
Yeah.
it was a great story. I thought it was a lot of fun, and the some of the themes were just outstanding. The museum scene, like, oh, the things that were stolen, and the idea of colonization. It was all fantastic, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I would tend to agree with you. I'm not sure that I would say Civil War or Captain America, any of the Captain America ones would be my favorite, but I would say that Marvel has made a lot of movies, and I don't know that Black Panther is the best. I would definitely put it up in the top,
Oh, it's
you
in the
know,
top five, I
in
would
the
say.
top.
It's
Yeah,
up.
it's definitely in the top. Again, here's the thing, right? And this will tie into the black vegan thing, right?
Actually, very quickly, kicks the shit out of the other blonde-haired, blue-eyed devil. I mean, that second Thor movie, I saw it once. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. That one was no good.
Yeah, they didn't put a lot of energy in. For some reason, they didn't put a lot of. They seem to really like the Iron Man thing. They put a lot of energy into
Yeah.
the Captain America one. They put energy into the Avengers, all that stuff. But it seemed like, yeah, the Thor. They just somehow thought that his
Well,
looks
the
would
second
carry it or
Thor. The
something.
first one, Kenneth
Yeah,
Branagh did a very good job, and the third one, outstanding. But that second one, whew.
yeah. Well,
Which brings me to
again,
something else. Finish up your vegan thing, and I would like to. I have an idea for a segue, but it
yes.
just I thought of it. Let me write it down.
Um, I think that when it comes to the Black Panther thing, again, aside from all the like the pro black stuff, right, which is like
What I enjoyed
silly,
about it.
right? It's not silly, but like it's really cool. But like, there's a certain like part of it. It's a little bit ham-fisted, as they would say. It's a little bit overdone, right? With a little bit of like the what can I do for you, white colonizer and stuff. I was like, oh, that's just unnecessary.
Actually, that
Like
made me
that's
laugh.
it made me laugh too, but it's unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
it's an unnecessary cheap shot, and it's like there's like this racial hierarchy thing, right? Like as long as you appear to be punching up, it's okay, right? As long as you're punching up, you can kind of do whatever you want, right? And that somehow the act of punching up implies that there isn't up, which means you're not actually equal. Because if you were equal, you'd have to shut the fuck up because you'd be equals. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't talk to people like that,
That's
right?
an
Like
interesting. Yeah.
I'm not wording it right, but there's something
No,
about
I can hear where
it's like,
you're.
but it's like the fact that you accept the fact that you're punching up means that you accept the fact that this person is better than you, or
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
higher than you. And like it's like there's I'm not phrasing it right, but there's a thing in there that I don't like, and I can't quite wrap my mind around it, but I don't like it.
No,
Like it
you're
doesn't
throwing at
feel
the dartboard and
clean.
you're hitting. It might not be a bullseye,
Yeah,
but I didn't think of it that way.
yeah,
But I know what you were saying. I hear you.
yeah. I don't, and it's like a cheap high. You know what I mean? And everybody gets a laugh out of it, and white people even find it funny because it's clever, and everybody gets to experience their thing. But it's like it's just so unnecessary. You know what I mean? And so there was a lot of that in there that I was like that it was just unnecessary. But I loved seeing black people, black faces, black women being portrayed as beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like I really liked it. It was really nice to see like people who look like me running around doing like dope shit, like fighting soldiers and beating people up and just doing complete like if I'm gonna suspend my sense of reality, it's nice to do it to see people look like me every now and then. Not that I don't want to see why I like to see I like Iron Man just as much as everybody else does. I also like Black Panther. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what made me happy about Black Panther is how many little white kids went and saw it, and how many little white boys wanted to be Black Panther for Halloween. It's like it's kind of cool that like the younger generation doesn't their parents don't think that's weird because when you and I were growing up, that shit would have been weird. It would have been okay, but it would have been weird. Like little white kids who wanted to be Mr. T for Halloween. It wasn't cool.
I think a
You
lot
know
of
what I
kids
mean?
wanted to be Mr. T for Halloween.
Exactly, but I don't think their parents were down with it. You
Oh,
know,
okay, yeah,
you know what I
probably
mean?
not.
It's like, what did Eddie Murphy say? They like Michael Jackson. He can go out Brooke Shields because he's Michael Jackson. Eddie, I can't go out there because Eddie be fucking. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's, you know.
Really quickly, this has nothing to do with anything, but the other thing that bumped Black Panther down just a notch was the those silly fighting rhinoceroses at the end. I'm like, yeah, that was
Uh,
a little silly. I mean, I know I was
I
supposed to
mean,
suspend my belief and all. It was just a little like, okay, a little silly. The monster
I mean,
rhinoceroses.
right. I mean, again, it's one of those things. It's like, right, like, but again, if I'm supposed to believe that Thor lives on some magical planet where they can do all that stuff, it's like, then I might as well be able to accept that rhinoceroses
It's
can
a
be trained.
cartoon movie, and we're picking it
Right.
apart. Exactly.
Exactly. Right. It's like who would win in a fight, Mighty Mouse or Superman? Well, Superman because he's a real person, right?
Not, not
So,
uh, the Dead Body movie, isn't that it?
right,
Yeah,
stand by me.
Stand by
Yeah.
Me.
So I'm gonna tie this into the veganism thing, right? So are white women taking over veganism and yoga and all this other stuff? Well, it's the same thing, right? 90% of the vegetarians that I've known my whole life have not been white people, right? Black people have been doing the vegetarian thing before it was a fad, right? Most of the Indian people, South Asian, right? Like tons of them. And
South Indian Asian, yeah, I get. I'm just thinking
but
racist and like, hello, barbecue.
oh, I'm not saying that black folks don't like meat. I'm just saying that I have known for decades black vegetarians,
Okay.
right? And black people, tons of people who come from islands, they eat meat and stuff, but they like the idea of like black people eating healthy and stuff is not something again that's ever been marketed the right way towards black people, but black people do it all the time. And I think that it's like it's one of those things where I don't think it's whitewashing of it, but I think that there's a way in which it's marketed as a lifestyle that is only really for certain people, right? When this was the argument when I was doing the yoga thing, they had pictures of me and they put them all over the place. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like my
You
friends
were
would
their
go to the
token.
right, they would go to the ashram and there'd be like pictures of me doing yoga, and people like, dude, you're like famous. I saw you on one of this famous place and I saw you picture. And I was like, oh, that's just ridiculous. But it's like because that was one of the arguments that people have been making is that like yoga, eating healthy, and things are there's tons of that in the black community, always has been, but it's like kept like as a secret. And so the idea of black people being vegan and being able to be used in the same way as it's much like with the producers like who make scary movies who are black. It's like, well, there's so few of them, but there's not so few of them. That's the thing. There's a perception that there's so few, but I know a half dozen black yoga studio owners who've been doing it for 20 plus years. I know tons of black vegetarians who've been vegetarian like since they were teenagers. You know what I mean? And there's never a light shined on these people for some reason. Like it's seen as like there's no community for it, and there's a huge community for it. And that's the thing. So I think that the argument that they're making is based in that. I read the article and I was like, well, some of the stuff is like part of it again is like okay, I get it. But to go back to that other thing, is this the most important thing in the room? Right? Or now that people are bringing light to it, let's all just join forces and come together and have a movement of healthy eating for all communities, right? Like, is it like now that there is acceptance, is it really important for us to talk about the ways in which there wasn't yesterday if there is today? Do you know what I mean? And I don't know the answer to that. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know. You
I
know?
do, and this is going to sound like a joke, but I don't mean it as a joke.
Hmm.
Do black vegans and vegetarians and people that do yoga really want a light shined on them? Because some of the most insufferable people to society's eyes are the white vegans and yogas and vegetarians. I mean, they're fucking
and,
annoying. That's
and
why Whole
and
Foods gets
CrossFit people.
picked on, right? I mean, I have a vegan friend. I can tell you two stories. I have a vegan friend. I have a vegan acquaintance. I'll start with that one. Who I did a vegan joke. I made a vegan joke, and then a year later, I tagged that one vegan joke with an like, oh, it became an AV, and I posted it on Facebook. He said, man, all you do is bully vegans. And I'm like, that's an interesting thing. Like, I have, at the time, I had 5 1-hour comedy CDs out. That's 5 hours. And in that 5 hours, less than 2 minutes was on veganism. And it was like, that's all you talk about. It's like, well, that's your perception, since that's what you wanted. But I thought that was interesting. And first of all, bullying vegans, actually use that word. You're bullying oh, fuck off. And then the guy that inspired the first joke was a friend who inspired the first vegan joke by being insufferable. Like, I
Right?
remember bouncing a joke off him about goodwill, and he went immediately into, well, goodwill keeps us out of the big corporations and supporting name brands and keeps clothes out of landfills. I'm like, oh my fucking God, all I wanted to do was tell you a joke, and you went off on this preachy save the world shit. I mean,
Oh,
do black people want to be a part of that community? Don't you think they want to live in hiding? Again, I'm not trying to be funny. If I was a black vegan, I'd keep it to myself.
well, this is exactly what I wanted to say before. And somehow it ties back to the other thing when we're talking about how this is how we're going to get into race. Because about comedy being able to say what it wants. People used to say, and people say all the time, I hear this from a lot of conservative white people. I have a handful of conservative white friends, and they'll say, God, man, a guy used to be able to tell a joke, right?
Right.
Now, I think that if we're talking about the sexism, racism thing, I think that for years there was a legitimate power differential between people. And so the if you had to take it, right? If you were a woman and your boss grabbed you by the ass and body pressure up against the wall, you had to just kind of smile and take it because you had no agency. And if you really needed the job, you just had to smile and take it. If you were a 74-year-old black man and some 28-year-old white dude walks in and goes, hey, boy, push the elevator button for me. Yes, sir. And you had to do it because that was your lot, right? It's either that or don't work, right? And I think that because there were so many years of that, I think that white people actually thought that black people or white dudes thought that women liked that. You know what I mean? Because there's so many years where they were allowed to get away with it wholesale that they actually believe because the act was convincing. Oh yes, sir, boss. Oh yeah, boss. We're gonna do exactly what you want, boss. Then the minute the guy boss left, they're like, that cracker motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, it was the first words out of their mouth when he left, but they don't know that. You know what I mean? And now people are saying, I don't want to hear these jokes, and people are really pissed off.
Well, let me
I mean,
interrupt you there, because I think it goes back to what you asked. Should comedians be able to say what they want? And me saying yes. And I think that, and that's why I said that nappy-headed hose, Don Imus, I drew a blank on his name for a second, he wasn't a comedian. And that's why his
right.
comment was inappropriate. You said, is it okay for him to try to be funny? Sure, if he wants to hit an open microphone and say, okay, don't take anything I'm saying on stage seriously, and then it has to be funny. He was just making an offhand disparaging remark. Even if he thought he was being funny, he was being funny in that way that is not funny, and it's disrespectful, and it's what women and black people and people of color and, that people that didn't have any power had to put up with, like you just said. And I think that's why there's a backlash against that. I think if and what is the joke you are making? If you are on stage making a joke about black, gay, whatever, is it intend to harm, or is it a universal truth or joke? I think there are variations. That's why I argued against Don Imus.
Right.
You said, is it okay for him to say
I
that? He's not a
mean,
comedian. He was a commentator. He was talking about a basketball
that's
game.
valid. That's valid. I mean, and that's funny because it comes full circle, right? Like because and I guess that's really what it is, right? This is where the power differential really makes a difference, right? Because you can have a whole society of people, or at least a segment of a whole society of people that believe that these people are okay with things the way they are because those people have no say in it. And I
Right.
think that's when people are talking about what it means to have consent, right? Like if you're a 75-year-old black man and a 16-year-old white boy can order you around, like you have no consent, right? Right, like that, and that's what they mean, right? When they're talking about like they're because there's no world in which like a 16-year-old anything should be able to boss around a 50-year-old anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Let alone with the racial implications and stuff. And so like if one group of people has no agency, like what's a woman gonna do if the guy's calling her honey, sweetie, toots, whatever, sitting her on his lap and patting her on the ass every time she comes by, but she needs that job. What's she gonna do? She has no agency, right? And everywhere she goes, she's gonna get the same treatment. Right. So like what difference does it make? And I think that's a powerful thing, right? So I think you're right, right? Like, and arguably, as people now have agency, that stuff changes, right? And with the advent of stuff like multiculturalism, stuff like Black Panther, you have little white boys running around wanting to be Black Panther for Halloween, right? Which has never happened in history in the same way, right? The number of white people who legitimately look up to Black people as their idols, right? Not just in sports and music, but like Obama or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's
Let
like
me say
you know
very
what I mean?
quickly,
It's
because I wanted to
interesting.
say this earlier and I
Yeah,
completely forgot.
yeah,
I
yeah.
called this in, fuck if I remember what year, when the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man came out. I remember clear as a bell, Hollywood going, holy shit, this movie made $100 million right out of the gate. This is insane. Who thought it was going to be this big? We're, the demographics are insane. And I don't know that anybody ever figured it out, but I said, I knew it was going to be that big. You have Batman, and he wears a cowl, but he has this. Superman, you see his face. Spider-Man was the first movie where it's like, all right, we're going to hide the identity so Asian kids, Black kids, Indian kids, anybody can say, ooh,
Right.
that's me in that costume.
Absolutely.
And that's why it was so big. And
Absolutely.
now we've come full circle to, like you said, little white kids are seeing Black Panther cover head to toe, and they can put themselves inside that costume. You don't get that with Captain America. You will now that Falcon's taking over, but
yeah.
there should have been articles written on it about fantasy and the fact that you couldn't see Spider-Man's skin tone. It was I got it right away.
Yeah, it's a powerful. The visuals are powerful, right? Like I
Yeah.
think what we're fighting for in this country is who gets to write the story, right? Like whose point of view are we going to tell the story from? And for the past several hundred years, we've had one point of view. And now other people are like, well, but I have a point of view on those same things, right? Because if you and I go see a movie, right, and then we both write a review, we can have seen the same movie, enjoyed ourselves, like enjoyed hanging out with each other and eating food, sneaking food in the movies, doing whatever the fuck we do, right? And then both write two completely different reviews. Like we can have two very different experiences while having the same experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. And for years, lots of people have been having an experience and only one group of people has been able to really write about, like one group of people has controlled the narrative to a degree, right? Like you don't hear the story of the settlers from the perspective of the Native Americans. It's a very different story. You know what I mean? It's a very different story. It's a remarkably different story if you read their version of it. You know what I mean? It's like when you go down south and they call it the War of Northern Aggression, right? That is a legitimate perspective, right? And we laugh, War of Northern Aggression, right? I think that they're nuts and wanted to keep fucking humans as fucking tools, right? As farm equipment. I think
They did.
it's right. Right. I think it's a
And the
reprehensible
North
thing.
aggressively
But
wanted to end that.
right,
Well, the North
exactly.
aggressively wanted to maintain the
Yeah,
Union, but
right. Maintain the union and make sure that they could keep that tax money flowing that was coming from slavery,
yeah.
and didn't want the South to have an advantage. But
Well, not even
but
the money
you
that was
know,
coming from. Well, I mean, the idea, cotton and tobacco were huge. I mean,
I
so
mean,
yeah,
they
get rid of the
were.
slaves, keep paying in the
I
taxes, you
mean,
just
at
earn less.
one point they were 80% of the GDP of this nation was was tied into slavery
Yeah,
directly.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like for a long time. You know what I mean? Like it's not a it's but like but there are two versions of the Civil War, right? And both of them are accurate. There are three versions, right? There's the black people's version of it, who were like free soldiers who were fighting. There's white people. There's escaped slaves who were fighting, and there were escaped slaves. Like if you go back to the Revolutionary War, there's the escaped slaves were fighting on the side of the British because the British said, if we win, you guys will be free.
Yeah.
Right? We don't ever talk. Right? There's like a bunch of different perspectives that you could tell these stories from. And now lots of people have the opportunity to put their perspective forward.
Well,
and
I'm a
I
good
think
white
that
person, so I did see glory. So I feel like
right, exactly, exactly. But there's something interesting. Like it's interesting that the pushback that a lot of people are getting is not is like when they talk about the 1619 project being invalid or whatever. It's like, well, no, it's just another perspective, right? Like it seems like we
right.
want to have one
Wasn't there
overarching
that came out
perspective.
against that? I don't even want to go down that path.
Oh no, there's
Talked
no
about
point.
pulling
But
funding because of that. It was just absurd. But
right, but it is interesting, and to a degree, I would say that this is going to be controversial. The South with their little stupid monuments and shit. You know what I mean?
right.
They legitimately have a different perspective. Do you know what I mean? They're not wrong. They legitimately have a different perspective. Like the idea that their heritage doesn't equal hate and stuff. I think that's just bullshit, right?
I was just going to
I've
say,
done
I
enough.
would agree with you if not for the fact that
You
they,
know,
if you look at the timeline, the statues went
yeah.
up during civil
Yeah, in
rights
the
moment.
some of them right in the 50s and 60s and stuff.
Yeah,
Like it's a load of bullshit, right?
right.
But
It was definitely
right,
a know your
it's
place kind of
nonsense.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's fucking nonsense in that way.
it
But
wasn't.
in another way, like I understand that they legitimately do things differently.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there is a way in which the South is the South and the North is the North and the West is the West and the Midwest is the Midwest. Right? Like they're not all the same. We all might look similar, right? There's a guy I'm sure who lives on the East Coast who looks remarkably similar to you. Probably very few people in Iowa who look similar to me. No, I'm kidding. No,
we
I'm
got a
seriously.
few.
Like
They're mostly in jail, but we got a few.
I'm sure. Right, exactly. I'm sure there's a dozen black dudes with dreadlocks, right, who play bass, right. I'm sure half the bass players out there are black dudes with dreadlocks. You know what I mean?
Remember
But
earlier
you
you
know,
said that you were the yoga star. You should move to Iowa and be the bass player. You would be the king.
the bass player. Yeah. Hey, yeah, that black guy moved in. What's he doing? Oh, he's the bass player.
Exactly.
Get a token T-shirt. Be awesome. Oh, that'll be so good.
Well,
Um,
let's put a cherry on.
yeah,
What do you say
indeed,
before we start
man.
going down too many more tributaries?
Yeah, and I have a joke to tell you that I can't tell you on air because
Okay. You got
only
anything
because
to
you
plug?
might,
Got any shows coming up?
Oh, I do. We're playing. Katie and I are playing trio with John Hummel. Me, Katie, John Hummel on drums this Wednesday in Woodbridge,
What's the
an
date?
outdoor. The 26th, Wednesday the 26th. I believe the show starts at 7, and there's 2 acts. It's a kind of a female fronted blues night. A woman named Carrie, I want to say Powers, but I'm not sure. I might be getting that wrong. But
Anybody tuning in for the first time, for some reason, Barrett's the musical director for the Katie Henry Band, so that's the trio he's
yes,
talking about. And so
yeah,
Wednesday the 26th, probably 7 p.m. I'll look this all up
yeah,
on
7-ish.
and
And
the
I
location
think
again.
it's at I think it's in Woodbridge, the high school and the library
Okay.
share a park, essentially. I think it's in the park of the high school slash library, I believe. But it's an outdoor show.
KatieHenryMusic.com. We'll
Yeah,
have it.
it's free. Yeah, it's free and all. It's a free outdoor show, and it's a fun thing. We're playing a bunch of good music, and Hummel's a killing drummer, so it's a good show to come see. You
Nice.
know. So yeah, what you
Uh,
got going on?
I'll put that up on the screen. I got nothing. This
Yeah.
was my gig for the year. As I put, I'm like, I hope I get to tell jokes again before the year is out. I really had a lot of fun. Um,
Are you
So
Now,
the
real
CD,
quick,
the album of mine that ended up on
yes.
Spotify on
Yeah, man,
Sirius
that's
XM,
dope.
that is
That's
called
fantastic.
"This Could Get Awkward." I'll throw a graphic up of it right now.
Yes.
And if you don't have Sirius XM, guess what? You can listen to the entire thing on Spotify. You can pull me up on Pandora. You can Apple Music, Google Play, wherever you want. This Could Get Awkward. 5 new tracks going on Sirius XM.
Yeah, man. Good
All right.
shit, dude. Good shit.
Good
Yeah, man.
talking,
Good to
my
talk to
friend.
you. Yeah, man.
Let's shut this recording off and say what we really think about race and gender.
Yeah.